iPhone XS, 10R, 11 or 12, the iPhone 15, the base standard model, is kind of the best one to upgrade to. Because even compared to the iPhone 12 Pro, the base model iPhone 15, the most affordable iPhone 15, is better than the 12 Pro in literally every single way. Because low-key, the most affordable iPhone 15 kinda slays hard, especially in this pink colorway, which I think looks amazing. Firstly, the design is super familiar, but it's just so much better. Because the glass on the back is now a textured matte finish, which means there's no more fingerprints and it feels really nice, and the aluminium edges are actually slightly curved, so it's so much more comfortable in your hand. We also get dynamic island on the front, which I personally think looks really clean. It makes for some really fun animations and can be genuinely useful if you have background activities running on your phone. The display also goes up to a peak brightness of 2000 nits, which is the exact same as the iPhone 15 Pro Max, which means it's perfectly legible even in direct sunlight. The iPhone 15 is also running the A16 Bionic chip from the iPhone 14 Pro Max. While this is running last year's chip, it'll actually outperform most phones out on the market right now, while also giving you better battery life than most phones as well, including any iPhone from a couple of years ago, because using this compared to that is like a whole different world. And speaking of whole different worlds, the primary camera is now a 48 megapixel sensor, which means it'll be extremely sharp, but without taking too much of your storage, because it actually takes 24 megapixel photos by default in really small file sizes like 2 or 3 megabytes. And of course, you can shoot all the way up to 48 megapixels if you shoot in the max mode. And because the sensor is so megapixel dense, you can actually get a 2x crop at 12 megapixels natively. And even though this doesn't actually have a dedicated zoom lens, the 2x digital crop on the main sensor on this is actually a better camera in itself than the actual optical 2x camera on the iPhone 12 Pro. The cameras on the iPhone 15 are better than most smartphone cameras right now and basically demolish any iPhone camera from a couple of years ago. And of course, the iPhone now finally has USB-C support, which means you can charge it with literally any USB-C cable you have lying around. This is obviously thanks to the European Union forcing Apple to adopt USB-C, because otherwise we wouldn't have got it at all. But despite how good this phone is overall, I do have one major complaint, which is that the display is still running at 60 Hz and not the super smooth 120 Hz like the iPhone 13 Pro, 14 Pro, 15 Pro, and basically any Android on the market right now that costs more than like $300. If you've used a 120Hz display before, using this might feel like a downgrade. But if you're coming from an iPhone that has a 60Hz display and you're used to it, which is basically any older iPhone, and you don't care about 120Hz, the 60Hz display on this is completely fine. And while it is still 60Hz, it'll still feel incredibly smooth just because the phone itself is far newer. I'm really glad with what Apple did with the iPhone 15, because last year the iPhone 14 just didn't really make that much sense, because this was basically just a reskinned, or not even a reskin, it was basically just an iPhone 13. But the iPhone 15, it's got actual changes that it can actually be really beneficial to most iPhone users, and you don't have to pay pro money to get many pro features. Also, I'm going to say this one more time, because the pink iPhone 15 is the best iPhone 15 color. I highly recommend it.